Alright guys, we're almost done with this process. The last thing we need to do is get the enclosure installed. To do that, we're going to get the hatch prepped, or the rear deck lid rather prepped. And to do that, we're going to have to do it one of two ways. You can see here, there's already a big piece of metal missing out of there. That's because I knocked it out already. If your car has DSP, these holes will be missing already. If your car has M audio, this big hole here will be cut out. And if your car has no DSP, if it's the standard audio, there will be a little piece of metal that's perforated right here that you can just bump out with your hands, which I've already done here. Because what we're doing in the end is we're going to be dropping down our bolt assembly through this square hole here. One on this side and one on this side. So we've got two front mounting points, and then the rear of the enclosure slides into here. So what we need to do is get these bolt assemblies down through these little square holes. To do that, just reach up in here, and you're going to lift up the sound deadening material. You'll feel it. There's some sound deadening up in there. You're just going to lift it up, and you're just going to reach your hand up through there and drop the bolt down on each side. We've already pre-attached the top washers for you, so there's no worries there. Be careful, the metal's kind of sharp. I don't want you guys gouging your fingers open. So now we've got our bolts in. Everything's down nice and snugly. We're ready to go ahead and get the enclosure installed. But before we do that, actually I left them out of here. I was going to show you guys a couple things I wanted to do with some sound deadening. We want to deaden, put a few pieces of sound deadening on the rear deck to decrease the chance of rattles from the enclosure resonating against the rear deck. So when we come back in to load the enclosure, we're going to go over the sound deadening install as well as connecting the speaker wire to the back of the enclosure. So we'll see you guys in a moment. So getting ready to install the enclosure, first thing we're going to want to do is locate the 4 pieces of sound deadening material we've given you in your package. I've got a heat gun here. You can go and steal your wife's hair dryer, or you may have your own hair dryer. I'm not here to judge you, but we need to heat this in some capacity. So if we're using a heat gun here, let's just go ahead. Be careful, you don't want to burn your hands. We just want to heat this up a little bit and get it a little bit more pliable, because as it stands, it gets kind of hard, and you know it's still flexible, but we want it a little bit more flexible to work with. So just heat it up a little bit. Like I said, you don't have to get it really, really super hot. See, it just gets a little bit more flexy as you move it around. So we'll do it one piece at a time just for showing you guys. You can do it all at once. But the key areas to really get deadened are these low-hanging areas here. We have this here. I think we just lost a light. I don't know if you guys can still see, but we want these low-hanging areas. So we want here, 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 and here, because that's where the enclosure is going to come in contact with the rear deck. So we take on these areas here, we take the sound deadening, and we just be careful because it's aluminum on one side, it's kind of sharp. We just want to roll it down nice and tight on that rear deck, like so. Roll out the little folds in it. So now the rear deck, instead of clank, 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 it's a thud, thud, thud. We're going to put another piece here, another piece here, and another piece here, which we're not going to film all that because it's monotonous to see that over and over. And we'll get the enclosure installed. So we'll join you guys shortly for the enclosure install. I'm going to finish up the sound deadening, and we'll get this thing knocked out. Alright guys, we're almost done with this. So let's go ahead and get the subwoofer enclosure connected to the amplifier. Again, just stripping off a little bit of insulation off of each wire, the positive and the negative. And now it's critical to remember what you made positive at your amplifier. And remember you just have to remember which one was positive and negative. They're labeled, but you know, you need to confirm that. So we know from years of working with Monster Cable that Monster Cable side's always positive. Again, it doesn't matter. You make whatever's positive. It's just a left and a right. So we're going to insert that. Now we're ready to install the enclosures. You can see up here I've got the 4 pieces of sound deadening installed right up there. That's where the enclosure is going to meet and go up in there. So all we're going to do at this point is install the enclosure. Pretty simple. We're going to slide it up in the far left hole on this side and the middle hole on the passenger side, and you can see it just slides right up on there. Cool. Alright, so we've got one side done. We're going to take the second side. Just take our washer, put it up on the nut, or the bolt rather. Take the 11mm nut. Just kind of thread it down with your finger. get it started, I'm just using a big old extension here. And then go ahead and throw it on your socket wrench. And we're going to wrench this guy down and get it nice and snug up in there. See, this just takes a second. You can get it out of there in just a matter of seconds. Just bring your 11mm socket out to the car and get it out of there. In fact, you may want to leave it in the car if you think you're going to be removing this regularly. So at this point, we can go ahead and pan back, and you can kind of see how it looks in the car. It almost disappears as you step back. You almost lose no trunk space. We'll, of course, tuck that speaker wire up out of the way and move on to the tuning process. We've almost got this thing done.